Seriously, just what's Bethesda's deal? Why are they so into tainting their own games? And when I say that, people may think I'm talking about the current Bethesda, but no, this has been happening since Morrowind way back in 2002, as far as I can tell. However, the quantity and quality of these edits has varied wildly over the past decade. In Morrowind's case, there were 7 of these plugins made. 3 of them add quests, 2 of them add armor, and the other 2 just add additional detail, let's say. They aren't particularly high quality, but seeing as they were A, released for free, and B, released for a game with little to no voice acting, the gap in quality compared to the main game or its latter 2 expansions isn't as noticeable as it could be in later titles, like in Oblivion. Yeah, we all know how well the Horse Armor Pack was received by now, right? And besides the Horse Armor Pack, there would be 7 other minor downloads. 4 of them add player housing, 2 add quests, and the last one adds additional detail once again. But this time, the quality gap is actively widening. None of these minor downloads include any new voice acting, featuring repurposed, spliced, or previously unused base game lines. They're not even spliced particularly well or consistent. Also, most of them, with only a handful of exceptions, don't include any new meshes or textures. These just feel really haphazardly thrown together, but most importantly, they don't feel warranted, you know? Like, just give me Shivering Isles and Knights of the Nine. I feel like the other downloads only detract from your overall quality, not add to it. And of course, I do need to add that since about half of these are derived from prior cut content, it makes sense that these are also lacking, but that doesn't excuse them being sold for actual money. Even for freebies, these aren't really commendable. And with that, we get to Skyrim. Luckily, by this time, the whole minor add-ons, besides the major ones, thing has kinda died down. Dawnguard and Dragonborn are mostly welcome additions, while Heartfire is just kinda pointless in my opinion. We would get our first offensively bad creation in 2012, created by Bethesda in collaboration with Valve to commemorate the release of the Steam Workshop. This would be Fall of the Space Core, a Portal crossover. And look, this kinda speaks for itself. I get it, it's kinda cute, but it's not something I'd ever acknowledge if it wasn't listed as an official download. At least it's free. Then in 2015, Bethesda would finally start tainting Skyrim properly with the introduction of paid mods, a short-lived Steam Workshop feature which, as you can guess, was received extremely well. The less said about this failed venture, the better. The only notable thing I can muster is the fact that Ortmore's very minor Castle Valkihor rebuild was included here, and seeing that is pretty strange since I recall it always being present on the Nexus either way. Then in 2017 we would see the rise of the Creation Club. Quoting from the UESP, the Creation Club was an in-game microtransactional store for Skyrim Special Edition. A virtual currency called Creation Club credits was sold within it, which was used to purchase unique add-ons called creations. Each creation released through Creation Club is official Bethesda content, developed with third-party developers and contracted mod authors. That's the proper wiki way of saying it. I personally would call it pandering nonsense. This is basically all the worst aspects of Oblivion's low quality downloads, but increase their amount tenfold. There were 74 of these creations released, so there has to be something good, right? Well, sure, but these are the definition of a mixed bag. So many of these are just nostalgia baiting, like literally just adding items from past games without any rhyme or reason. Chrysamere, the Divine Crusader armor, Dawnfang and Duskfang, Netch Leather armor, Ruin's Edge, the Staff of Sheogorath, the Lord's Mail, Shadowrend, Sunder and Raidguard, Umbra, the Bittercup, the Bow of Shadows, Goldbrand. All of these are nothing more than just pander material. 13 of the 74. Nothing more than just fucking keys jingling in your face. Ooh, you remember that. You like that, right? I feel like the strangest thing here is just the fact that no one thought about how these items would devalue the artifacts present in the game already. Like, when creating Skyrim, the developers had to pick and choose which artifacts they would bring back and which they wouldn't. But now it doesn't really fucking matter. Just add every artifact. Doesn't matter if their inclusion makes any sense or not. 15 of these creations are just armor sported from blades. Fucking blades! That's like if the next Mario game took design cues from the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, or if the first Resident Evil game imported skins from Resident Evil 5. Wait. Well, at least the skins in Resident Evil never really took themselves seriously to begin with. But what the fuck are we doing in Skyrim? Headsman's Cleaver. Same thing, just a blade sport. We also have an assortment of house creations made by Eleonora, who already made a lot of these before, if I remember MXR's words correctly. But of course, those others were free. Speaking of, horse armor. Yup, so funny, right? It's back, guys, and it costs money again. Yeah, let's just make that free, shall we? But this is all low-hanging fruit, right? Let's focus on some of my personal least favorites. Goblins. This creation and the other two I'll be highlighting here just show an exceptional level of not giving a fuck. And that's what hurts, you know? This stuff making it into the game also implies the devs no longer care about Skyrim. Sometimes I feel like I'm one of the few people that genuinely still cares about Skyrim. You know, Skyrim, the rev game underneath all the creations, the mods, the memes and the ports, that's Skyrim. What exactly does goblins do so wrong? Well, let me ask you this. Do goblins belong in Skyrim? Short answer, no. Long answer, Skyrim already has a more unique goblin variant in the Falmer. The funny thing is, back in 2011, Bethesda held an internal game jam for a week, and the developers were let loose to just create whatever. Someone then created Skyrim-ish looking goblins with sideburns and stuff. These models would later get repurposed, albeit recolored blue, to become the Reeklings in the Dragonborn DLC. But if the goblins creation doesn't do Skyrim-like goblins, then what does it do? Well, what do you think? What game in the series is so generic that it would stoop so low as to just have generic goblins as enemies? Exactly. These goblins are almost to a T remakes of the goblins seen in Oblivion. But why bother with this in the first place? They could have just as easily made some kind of Falmer follower and elaborated on their lore a bit rather than make yet another Oblivion reference. Also, you can pause the video if you want to read this journal in its entirety, but this just screams amateur mod writing. This is supposedly written by a tribal orc, but everything is perfectly noted down, even with numbered days, and it's full of name drops from the base game, as to say like, look, you know those people, right? I belong in this game, I promise. I wasn't added in later, but that's not even the worst part. The creation doesn't double dip, it doesn't even triple dip, but it quadruple dips for some reason, as we have Oblivion goblins, what can only loosely be described as a storyline inspired by lore from Blades and Elder Scrolls Online, and then for some reason the Spear of Bitter Mercy is also just thrown in here. Why not? And then there's also fishing, a largely pointless romp that's filled with inconsequential NPCs spouting out generic repurposed dialogue and what seems like never-ending fetch quests. My big problem with this one is it just decides to have many unique artifacts from games past as random pickups from fucking fishing. We're talking real random Morrowind fan service here. Denstagmer's ring, the Fen of Hayek Namet, Mentor's ring, Ring of Khajiit, Ring of Fenaster, Ring of Surroundings, Ring of the Wind, Vampiric ring, and Warlock's ring. They're all present and accounted for. Why? Just why? Does your fishing creation need that extra hook of nostalgia bait to reel potential players in? But then my all-time low point has to go to the Staff of Hasadoki. This creation, despite not really being much to write home about, just rubs me in all the wrong ways. Of course there's the fact that we're bringing back an artifact from Morrowind once again, but then we also bring a book from Morrowind, and one from Daggerfall over, for the heck of it as well. But then there's also the fact that most of the backstory given here focuses on a joke character from Morrowind, and they're treating him as if he was an actual proper NPC, which he just wasn't. That'd be the same as if people just started using the names of Divide Fear's daughters as... Right, yeah, about that ridiculous, yeah. But if you look past the ridiculous lore being introduced and the premise being nostalgia bait, my biggest problem here is just the enormous missed potential. See, the main villain, so to say, is a necromancer known as Ivara of Olenveld. Olenveld is a location that was only ever mentioned in a book from Oblivion, the Exodus. Olenveld is described as an island off the coast of Skyrim that's home to a ruined city and basically got reduced to an enormous graveyard. In the book, a coven of necromancers hid out there due to Archmage Straven's ban on necromancy. It's one of those very few Elder Scrolls books with a good horror setup and reveal, I feel like. I personally love those, but my opinion aside, the book sketches a great location to set a creation in. A ruined island city that's all but established in the lore. You could do whatever you wish with it, and it could have been great. But no, instead you just use it as a random throwaway backstory for your generic necromancer boss you encounter in a city's blessed cavern. Such a waste, man. The only creation which I think is kinda cool is rare Curios. As while yes, that one also depends on previous game content, at least it's presented in a unique fashion that fits in with how the Khajiit traders are depicted in Skyrim, and doesn't fuck with legendary artifacts just cuz. The thing is, even when these creations are good quality wise, I don't really get their whole existence. They really do seem to just exist so you can have a slightly higher quality nostalgia bait experience compared to just Nexus mods. Though for all I know, maybe Lover's Lab has the best nostalgia bait nowadays. And in the very few cases where nothing was taken from either past or future releases, I still don't know why anyone would pay for them. Low quality zombie apocalypse? Cool, I guess, but why? And then these creations would also end up getting shelved, bringing us to the latest in Bethesda's weird expansions endeavors, the Verified Creators program. This one's different in the way that these add-ons aren't considered official, which means I won't necessarily have to worry about them tainting the legacy of the game any further, which is neat, and a good thing too, because now that this program is more widespread than the previous creation, quality control has seemingly gone completely out of the window. And I don't really mean to be a dick here, but if your description is riddled with typos, that just doesn't come across professionally. Like, honestly, the idea here that these mod authors can get feedback from actual Bethesda employees and extra lore insight, that's fucking awesome. That feels like something I dream up in the gaming golden age. But that cool concept isn't really reflected in the end products here. There are like 15 different model and texture mods on here that just cover a plant or moss. I mean, sure, you go king, but like, I still don't see any reason to even bother with all this. Also, I'm sorry for saying this, but the creations at least had consistent banner art. Here, apparently there isn't any kind of template to follow and people just do whatever, leading to a bit of a stylistic mismatch to say the least. Millicent Pureblade? Really? She's my childhood sweetheart? Oh no, maybe Lover's Lab wasn't as far away as I thought. Also, speaking of consistency, apparently there's also no rules in place for how your game should look in your promo videos, as the screenshots of Millicent look like this, but the video looks like this. And I will never not hate it when Skyrim gets turned into whatever you call this. I hope I can find that screenshot from the Cutting Room Floor mod which shows like all my problems with these mods when I'm editing this, otherwise I'll find something in the same vein, I'm sure of it. But guess I'm in too deep now. What have I learned from this trailer?
Before we got separated, we said we'd travel together when I've come of age. You know, explore the world and help those in need. I understand it must be hard for you to adjust to the fact of your memory loss, but I'm ready to help you recover our past, if you want. I've been doing nothing but training these days. Wherever you're going to, I'm skilled enough to go with you. I promised I'd shield you from all the harms in this world. Maybe I'd also carry your stuff when your bag is loaded with weight.
Voice actress Days Daytime does a great job voicing Millicent. Just too bad that the script she was given is mediocre at best. Feels like I'm speaking to a dating sim character written by someone whose first language isn't English. And hey, no disrespect, mine isn't either. But this whole thing just clashes with Skyrim's writing in almost every way. It just feels wrong when a character has this kind of dialogue tree. But let's not base everything on this one trailer. You know, this mod pool is really varied and also quite under-documented at the time of writing. So who knows, maybe there are some diamonds in the rough here, huh? Just know that I won't be digging for them. And now, roll the clip.
Hoe vaak moeten we jou nog een lesje leren, ouwe gek?
Yeah, with the recent Oblivion fucking reskin, what did we get? No Creation Club escapades, luckily enough, but we did get some stupid shit in the vein of the original Oblivion downloads. Come to think of it, I should really finish up my design for my wow, I love when game remasters add random clashing editions completely without merit shirt. Don't know why I was randomly reminded of that right now, but the less said about this remaster, the better. Sadly though, we're not quite done, as there is one more game that suffers from these Bethesda-isms, that being Fallout 4. Fallout 4 is definitely a divisive game, I'd say. I like it for its turn your brain off and go shoot some stuff moments, but those really shouldn't be the elements you'd want to highlight in a Fallout game. Its actual highlights, the random loot system, the crafting system, and the settlement system, I'm either indifferent towards or actively dislike. But that didn't stop Bethesda from making 3 of the game's 6 DLCs just workshop expansions. Whether you care about this stuff or not, I think we can all say that this should have just been in the base game, if anything. Or maybe a free update. But just like Skyrim, Fallout 4 would get some creations made for it too. And what are those like, huh? Oh, that's real nice. Yeah, they're just skins. Skins! Seriously, there were 170 of these things made, yet that number is only 63 when not counting skins. That's crazy. According to Bethesda design director Emil Pagliarulo, Creation Club content for Fallout 4 blurs the lines between canon and non-canon. Oh, it blurs lines alright, but I'm just not sure whether I want to see them unblurred. Because what do we have when not counting skins? Fallout 3 content. More Fallout 3 content. Even more Fallout 3 content. Prey reference, Skyrim reference. At least when Skyrim did these city crossovers, they were free, you know? And I just really dislike that both the Fallout 4 and Skyrim Anniversary Editions just put this shit in your game without you really having a choice. I already said this, but fellas, I don't want this. This is a case of less being more. Like with your Radiant quests, you should have learned this by now. You really should have. And of course, we couldn't have a modern Fallout game nostalgia baiting us without jiggling New Vegas in our face, now can we? Man, this is so tiresome. I've written so many of these Creation Club scripts, but this one finally made it through. You know, I generally dislike being this negative throughout a video, especially when I don't really have any comments on how to improve things, but like, there really is nothing to improve here. Just wipe all this stuff from existence, act like it never happened. Seriously, nothing of value would get lost. Nothing. And I hope that Bethesda can get their shit together, because they seem to have been caught in some horrid downward spiral for quite a while now. On the one hand, I don't like that, seeing as they're responsible for some games I really like, but on the other hand, how much of that Bethesda is still a part of the current Bethesda? That's enough negativity for one video though. I really hope that 2026 brings some more positive Bethesda news along, you know?